everybody's just depressed. I mean, they were so excited leading into the draft and in the fact that Wiseman was there at number 2. He was number 1 on their board, and they were just really looking forward to having Steph, Klay, Draymond, and then plugging in Wiseman and seeing what Wiggins could give them. And then the range of emotions in those couple hours before the draft and then after the draft, they really couldn't even celebrate because everybody was so sad about Klay. I mean, he is the guy behind the scenes with all the star power in that locker room that sets the tone for everybody else. And that's why Kerr and all those players, they love him. And so to know that he's going to be out again for another year was just crushing for everybody involved.
Nick, can you give us any insight into how Bob Myers and company dealt with the news of Klay Thompson literally hours before the NBA draft? Did that make their decision challenging, more challenging, looking at other guys like LaMelo Ball, considering he was going to be available?
Jay, Bob addressed that right afterwards and said, look, Wiseman was our guy. If he was there, we were taking him. And obviously the emotions involved right before the pick are unprecedented. We've really never seen anything like it before where a star player who has won titles in an organization gets another serious injury right before you've got to make a huge selection for your future. But all along when you talk to people in the organization, they loved what Wiseman could give them. And they're confident that once he gets into their system, playing and learning alongside Draymond, that he can be maybe that bridge or potentially down the line a trade piece. Nobody knows for sure, but Wiseman all along was their guy. And I just don't think anything that happened with Klay changed the focus when he was there at number 2.
Nick, is there any concern within the organization that whenever Klay is out, the volume that then is put on the shoulders of Stephen Curry seems to be incredible, right? But him playing at that volume with the ball in his hands, it seems like that inevitably has led to injuries for him as well. What are they doing to combat that style-wise? How are they trying to lessen the load on Steph?
Well, Jay, that's something that they're trying to figure out as we speak, and over the next few weeks, they're going to have to find different ways because I'm with you. When you watch Steph those last couple of years and certainly going into last season when they knew they weren't going to have Klay, the question was, well, just how much is going to be on Steph's shoulders? And Steve Kerr was pretty honest up front. He said, Steph's minutes are going to be limited. I mean, we're trying to get him to 32, 33 minutes a game. So to try and balance that again now and juggle the fact that Klay's not going to be out there, it's going to be difficult. And Steph's a little older. I mean, as much as he wants to be the guy and he can still fill it up from anywhere on the floor, this isn't the same player of a few years ago. There's got to be some balance. I think Kelly Oubre, when that deal finally becomes official, I think he'll help offensively. And they're banking on Wiggins, guys, to be more motivated night to night to take some of that burden off Steph, especially on the offensive end. But there's no way around it. You lose Klay, more pressure is going to be on Steph to deliver. And as much as he may want to, everybody knows he's going to have the ball and he's going to be shooting it as much as we've seen.
Nick, how does this injury affect the style of play, though, for the Warriors? Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to change, or are they going to just try to stick with the same style?
Gee, I think they've got to stick with the system. They've just got to keep running it and hope that it works in a similar fashion because, guys, let's face it, all the players that we've named, aside from Wiseman, who's still kind of a question mark on what he's going to be able to do on the NBA level, these are all offensive guys. I mean, Draymond is the key piece defensively, but after that, you're not relying on Steph or Wiggins or Oubre, any of these guys to give you some huge defensive edge night to night. They're going to have to outscore people. And the real key in all of this to me is they trust in the system that Steve Kerr has put in place. And when you take Klay out of that, I just don't think a championship is possible. He did too much on too many levels for the group, but they can still be competitive. But to your point, you have to be competitive by racing up and down the floor. You can't rely on some defensive prowess that hasn't been there when you're taking guys like KD, Andre Iguodala, all these different guys, Sean Livingston over time. I mean, people have to understand, guys, these Warriors coming up were going to be different even if Klay was healthy.
Yeah.
Now he's not again, and these Warriors aren't the Warriors that we came to know and respect when they were making all those championship runs the last few years.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to ask you, without being a homer like myself, a Laker homer, but where would you have had them with Klay in the West and without Klay now? Where would you have them?
Gee, before the season, I mean, in the last week, I figured if you plugged Wiseman in, if he was the guy, I thought the Warriors could be in that top 4 in the West and really push in the postseason because we all know nobody wanted to see Steph, Klay, and Draymond in the playoffs after all the experience that they've had. Now, honestly, I think in a best case, this is probably a 5 or 6 seed. And this ties back into what Jay was talking about earlier. This is banking on Steph staying healthy and producing at that high level, and Draymond being motivated and setting that tone defensively night after night. Wiseman developing to a point where they can count on him for all the things they're going to need him to fill in and do, and Wiggins showing a different side of his game that he didn't show consistently in Minnesota. So there are a lot of question marks on this roster, and there always were. But again, Klay was kind of the safety net for everybody. He just went about his business. He dominated on both ends of the floor at times, and he went home. Kerr has called him the egoless superstar many times. And you take him out of that picture, and there are a lot of different issues with the roster that Bob Myers and his staff are going to have to fill up here soon.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.